Volleyball is a game, and although the main focus of the first 22 episodes was on game skills, the children also need to play. However, it will take some time before we reach the level of the game that men and women showcased at the Olympic Games in Paris.
It requires patience because we are still in our childhood stage, and the game of 12-year-olds in blue mini volleyball looks something like this. It is played in teams of 3, and the only restriction is that the ball cannot be played over the net on the first touch, otherwise everything else is allowed, just like in regular volleyball.
As has been said, volleyball is a game, but in the previous episodes we mainly focused on the skills needed for volleyball at the age of 14. Now we need to balance that with preparatory games. Volleyball played by 14 and 15-year-olds has already reached a solid level and looks something like this.
Any activity must first be mastered mechanically and then under game conditions. If you recall, in the 9th episode we focused on preparatory games for the development of finger techniques or setting, and later in the 11th episode we covered bump games. Our main goal was to ensure that the learned skills were tested in game situations. We got acquainted with both wall games and, of course, games on a real volleyball court. The advantage of preparatory games is that the ball always comes unexpectedly, and unlike in a 6-player game, we can use our own rules to prioritize a specific skill. In this case, it's bump.
Adult players also enjoy similar games, and they often return to them during warm-ups. However, in this episode, we need to move forward. We will demonstrate games that focus on other skills as well. These will include both partner games, which are very popular, and games with a larger number of players. This particular game focuses on the correct action of the hitting arm, where players can hit the ball over the net with one hand after a dig and a set from their teammate, but still without jumping.
To involve more players, we can smoothly rotate players even during a single rally. We play on a designated court and, of course, keep score. We can also try a variation where a player plays alone, with the first touch above themselves and the second touch over the net.
Then comes a variation of the previous game where players can attack while jumping. This game, with its sequence of actions, closely resembles real volleyball. It includes the main volleyball skills: reception, setting, attacking, and digging. Blocking is then added. The only skill not always included in this preparatory game is serving. This is to ensure the game flows quickly, with each rally starting as the coach tosses the ball alternately to one side and then the other.
Similar games, especially in more advanced stages of volleyball development, can be played in pairs across the entire court. We can, of course, adjust the number of players depending on how many are available for training. In this variation of the game, we utilize the hit after our own toss, which we learned during the spiked serve practice. This again speeds up the pace of the game, and the attacker more frequently faces direct confrontation with the block. The same game can also be played with a double block, but we're getting a bit ahead of ourselves, as double and triple blocks will be our topic later on.
And once again, we set the rules ourselves, which means we emphasize the skill that interests us in terms of development. For this reason, in this game, where we are focusing on defense, meaning blocking and digging, the point is awarded to the side that successfully defends against the opponent's attack. Therefore, we don't continue the rally to the end.
In contrast, in the next game, we are interested in the entire rally. So the rally continues until one side makes an error. Even though it may not be directly visible from the camera angle, we are still playing for points. And for now, on a designated court, in this case, a court measuring 4.5 by 9 meters.
Sooner or later, however, we must transition to a standard 9 by 9 meter court. Nevertheless, we still control the rules and the number of players, deciding based on the training priority. We need the prioritized skill to be repeated as often as possible. In this case, we stick to the rule that the game starts with an attack after the player's own toss, alternating between the right and left, or as we say technically, in zones 4 and 2. The aim of the game is to attack against a single block on one side and defend against an attack with a single block on the other side. As you can see, the game is played in teams of 5.
You might be wondering why we're playing in teams of 5. Why not include a 6th player? The reason, once again, lies in our priorities. If we want to create a situation with a single block, there is no point in keeping the front middle blocker on the court since they practically have no role. They can focus on another activity, whether conditioning or, if we have 2 courts, perhaps serving.
And finally, there are 6 players on the court. It's important to note that there is still plenty of time for the development of game systems, and training with 6 players should not dominate at this age category, as it will for juniors or adults. However, even 14-year-olds have their championships, and they cannot avoid training with 6 players. Even in these drills, the focus should be on addressing a specific task.
For example, in this game, the ball is tossed by the coach to one side, and from there it must be sent over to the other side with the first touch. The other side is then supposed to develop an attack in a situation where the ball is coming from the opponent, commonly referred to as free ball. The priority is to build the attack after the ball ideally arrives near the net, even though in this category it often doesn't, as the error rate is still high.
And this is yet another game, similar to
Geworteld in vertrouwen.
Ajax is kampioen. 3-2 Ajax.
Om de toekomst te inspireren.
similar to the previous one, where the ball is tossed by the coach to one side, which then has 2 touches to send the ball to the other side, after which the game continues as usual. The final drill we'll show essentially mimics a real game. The only difference is that we don't start with a serve, but with the coach tossing the ball to one side, which then develops an attack in the normal way, and the game continues as standard. In the last few games, especially those with 6 players, we got slightly ahead of the developmental stage. However, we wanted to place the preparatory games, which are focused on developing individual skills, into the context of the whole team. We will address the application of game actions, the development of game combinations, and systems in the upcoming episodes of our series. Now, a recap of today's session.
We revisited the preparatory games for developing finger techniques and digging from previous episodes. We introduced preparatory games for developing other skills: reception, attack, block, and digging. We demonstrated games in pairs, trios, and teams of 5. We discussed how to structure the game in training so that it prominently features the priority skills we are currently focusing on. We explained that preparatory games are important for transferring mechanically mastered skills to variable conditions. We progressed to preparatory games with 6 players and noted that at this age, they should not be the priority. We hinted that more complex combinations and systems will be the topic of upcoming episodes, starting with the 25th.
And what will we focus on next? We are almost halfway through our series, so it's the perfect time to review everything we've learned so far. You can look forward to a recap of all 23 episodes aired so far. Until then, take care.